Quick recap. If you buy something or if you rent something, it has to be seen if it's a specific thing. When you're dealing with basically two things. Two different kinds of things. Either you're dealing with some object, some object, a car, a house, a fruit, whatever, or you're dealing with a right that's abstract, which a right means a benefit. But not all the benefits are lawful. The abstract matters are not all lawful. That's a place where we have to be mindful. That's because that's where people are going to get confused about stocks and things like that. Uh, so when you're dealing with buying or renting an object, then either it's a specific one in particular, or it's a described one, specific one in particular. That means this house, this car, this fruit, or that one, or mine, or anything that makes it specific. If you're not dealing with a specific thing, then it has to be described, and you have to follow the rules for that. Because now you're not buying anything in particular. That's how you buy online, by buying not something in particular, buying something described. So what's risky is selling or renting a specific unseen item, or agreeing to tend to specific unseen trees, Yani. We won't talk about that now. Unless you have a question. So we covered that already. If you have any question about that, feel free to ask, please. And when it comes to buying a described thing, not something in particular, not one thing in particular, Yani, when you buy a described thing, you're basically saying, I want one of those, not I want that one. When you buy a described thing, you're basically saying, I want something like this, one of those. So when it comes to buying a described thing, then, and we covered this already, you have two cases. Some scholars, they basically restricted buying described things, not buying anything in particular. They restricted that to very tight rules. These tight rules, they fall under a type of sale called salam sale. Salam, salam sale. And it has another name, salaf sale. The meaning of salam or salaf is advanced payment. That's the type of sale where you pay up front for someone to deliver to you later. Ideally, that's your ideal scenario there. You pay up front, he delivers later. So isn't that what we're doing online? You pay up front, they deliver later. Yes, but some scholars said, but it's too open online the way we do it. When I say some scholars say that about online, I'm talking about the idea. This is old knowledge, before online. What we do online for some old scholars is too open, needs to be more restricted to be valid. Restricted how? They said the way to sell not something in particular, to sell a described thing, is, which is a salaf sale or a salam sale, is for this thing to have certain very strict characteristics. One of them is that it can't be mixed. Can't be mixed. Mixed means can't have ingredients, multiple ingredients, or multiple components. It has to be one kind of thing. One kind of thing is like rice. So every grain is the same stuff. Or gold. Or material. Or an animal. Or a slave. One kind of thing. And this unmixed thing can't be too rare. And you can describe it exactly. Now I'm just summarizing. It's just to give you a general idea. When the subject of this advanced payment sale is valid, then you can pay that person. You have to pay him upfront. There's no alternative to that. And then he'll deliver to you later. And why do you have to pay him upfront? Very important rule. To avoid a debt for a debt. Because just the fact that he has to deliver to you means what? That he has a debt. So he has a debt. His debt's confirmed, which is he's going to deliver to you. So how are you going to pay for that debt with a debt? Which means I'll pay you later? Nah, that's not valid. I'll pay you later for you to pay me later. That's not valid. So you pay him now so that he can pay you later. But other scholars, they said, no, there is a way to sell described items. It's not restricted to salam sale. As long as it's described exactly. Described exactly means you have to describe everything that matters in the price. Everything that contributes to the price. So that's going to depend on what it is you're selling. Because could be the color matters or might not matter. And of course, the measure is going to matter. When you're dealing with living things, animals and slaves, and age and gender, it's going to matter. And that's salam sale in particular. When you're dealing with not salam sale, but you want to buy not something in particular. When you want to buy not one item in particular, but something like that, and not salam though, then it still has to be described exactly, all the way down to a T. That means everything that influences the price. And you have to remember when you're not buying a particular item, then you cannot word your contract to be for a specific thing. So you can't say, I buy that one, I buy this one, I buy your such and such. You need to say, I buy a such and such. Anyone have any question there? Feel free, please. Now I'm going to continue from here. We're talking about risky business. And how do we define risky business also? What's called in the hadith, bay' gharar, bay'u gharar, gharar. That means dangerous sale. I'm translating it as risky business. It is defined as a sale in which one or both parties, yani both sides of the contract, seller and buyer, the two contractors, one or both of them do not know the outcome, or the most likely outcome is ruin, is failure, loss. Those we have to avoid them. And so what we have here is many example scenarios of or things that make something risky. And like we said before, also, there are risks that the religion allowed us to take. The risk of renting, the risk of hiring. You hire someone to do work. It's risky. Well, you're going to take the risk though, if you want to. But here are some risks you can't take. Selling milk is still in the udders. Selling fish and birds before catching them, or onions before pulling them out, and juice that's still in the grapes, and wool that's still on the backs of the sheep. What you have to take from these examples is not be stuck on those examples only. And that's part of why there's several of them there. So you can understand the concept in general. Take those exact examples you were given and then try to render them abstract so that, because the dealings are so many, it's just like the words. Then we learn that blasphemous words is the most type of blasphemy because so many ways you can say something. So you need to learn the rule, and then someone will say all kinds of things. And then you'll know if it's blasphemy or it's not blasphemy. And same thing here. Learn these, like the universal idea here. And then when you do deals and you do all kinds of things, you'll be able to recognize issues. So selling milk still in the udders, fish and birds before catching them, onions before pulling them out, juice that's still in the grapes, wool that's still on the backs of the sheep. So you're going to tell them, cut it off the sheep and then sell it to me. Squeeze the grapes and then sell it to me, etc. Now we have a paragraph here about selling fruits without trees. I'm going to skip that. Unless someone needs that, then I'll read it. I'm going to skip it though, otherwise. Going down to number 3. Selling the non-existent. The non-existent cannot be sold. Like a planned house. The plans are there, but the house hasn't been built. Or the harvest of the next year. Desperate farmer says to you, I'll sell you my harvest from next year. Whatever I get is yours. That's invalid. Or, and this is one we might fall into here, to pay for a meal to be prepared and then leave the session before receiving the meal. Except in the case of the salam sale. So, to pay for a meal to be prepared, that means something doesn't exist yet. So you can't buy the non-existent. So how are you going to pay for a meal if you can't buy the non-existent in the first place? What's going to make that valid is for you to stay there while they make the meal. As long as you're staying there, it means the contract is still in session. Then they'll prepare your meal, yani, I'm saying, like you paid up front. It's one thing for you to just go order the meal and then they make it. And then when they make it, you pay for it. Fine, no problem. You can order the meal and leave if you're not going to pay for it right there. No problem. And then you'll come back in and they'll give you what you ordered and you give them their money. That's completely fine. But you go in there, you order the meal that doesn't exist, you give them the money, so you paid for something that doesn't exist, and then you leave. That means you finished the session. Now that's invalid. So what should you do? When you go back in there, redo the contract. You basically say, I'm going to buy that from you for the money I already gave you because it didn't become theirs. So to pay for a meal, to be prepared, and leave the session before receiving the meal. That's not valid. Except in the case of Salam. In the case of the Salam sale, that's when you can buy something that doesn't exist. Now, as far as you know, what do you know? Because the scenario of a Salam sale is basically you're dealing with, let's say, someone who, as they say, he deals in imports and exports. He doesn't have it right now. So he doesn't have it. You don't have it. Nobody has it. So where is it? Doesn't exist. And then you're going to pay him upfront, and then he's going to get whatever it is you ordered, and then give it to you. That's a case of buying the non-existent. But why that's valid? Because you're not buying something in particular. When you do the sale, when you do the contract, because you're going to say to him, I want a such and such. Four, nor can the undetermined be sold. Undetermined. Like, I now sell you one of my 3 cars. That statement, that proposal there, I sell you one of my 3 cars. That proposal, you cannot agree to it. Agreeing to it means to say, I accept. You'd have to say, I'll buy this car. And then he still needs to say, I accept, because that one right there is not valid anyway. That statement is not valid in the first place. Don't forget, the sale is the statement. The contract is the statements back and forth, not the exchange. So if you say to someone, you don't have the money, he doesn't have the product. Let's say you saw it though. If you say to him, I buy your car that's all the way over there in Allentown for $500. And my $500 is in New Jersey right now. And he says, I accept. That's valid. Mm. Another example of undetermined is to sell for one price or the other. To sell for one price or the other. Like for 1,000 cash or 2,000 credit. You can't agree to that. This is 1,000. This will cost 1,000 cash, 2,000 credit. You accept? Tell him no. I will just buy it for 2,000 credit or 1,000 cash. And subhanAllah, I found now that this knowledge is good for da'wah. Maybe this is why those Muslim salesmen were spreading Islam so much. Because people don't know. And then they do stuff. And then if you just tell them, then right there you open the door. And even for other Muslims who haven't learned. Yes, I say even for other Muslims for who haven't learned, it's a good da'wah. It's a door for just teaching someone. Hmm. Yes, yes. That we're talking about here that you can't buy or sell what's undetermined. And an example here is to sell for 1,000 cash or 2,000 credit, meaning that's the proposal. He says to you, I'll sell it to you for 1,000 cash or 2,000 credit. So you can't say to that, I accept. You'll have to determine which one you want and then agree to that. Therefore, it is not valid to be hired for a percentage of the yield, yani, or just to be hired for a percentage in general. What does it mean to be hired for a percentage? It means that at the end of the day, it means you don't know how much you're going to get paid. You can't be hired without knowing how much you're going to get paid. That's why the way the old taxi cabs used to do is invalid before uh, Uber and Lyft, which is valid. The way they would do it is you hop in there, they turn on their meter, and then they'll tell you how much it costs when you get there. That's invalid because you didn't know how much his salary was. His job is to take you to your destination. So you're hiring him to take you to your destination. You can't hire him without knowing his salary, and he cannot be hired without knowing his salary. So that's invalid. If it were valid for him to say to you, I'll tell you how much it'll cost when we get there, it would be valid for you to say to him, I'll tell you where we're going when we get there. So neither of those is valid. Nor is it valid to be hired for what exceeds a certain profit according to a Shafi'i. Meaning, this is a case they differed about. A Shafi'i says not valid, others say it is valid, which is what? Which is for someone to say, I don't care what you sell this for as long as you give me back $100. Basically, he says, you sell these units for whatever you sell them for. But from each bundle of these units, I want $75. So how much you're going to get paid, you don't know. That's not valid according to a Shafi'i. And this is why one cannot guarantee an unspecified debt nor marry an undetermined spouse. You can't guarantee an unspecified debt, and you can't marry an undetermined spouse. I'll move on now, unless you have a question there. Yes, it means, for example, if a man said to you, "I give I give one of my daughters in marriage to you," that's not valid. You can't say to that, "I accept." Number five, nor the unknown. Like, I sell you whatever is in this box, or I buy it for 1,000 dinars and dirhams. I buy this for 1,000 dinars and dirhams. That's not valid. It's like if a person said to you, I'll buy this from you for 10 dimes and nickels. That's not valid. 10 dimes and nickels. So that's unknown price. And you might say, is that not determined? Yeah, all of these are mixed. They're like mixed together. Some of them are almost the same thing, just like looking at it in a different way. Unknown, undetermined, non existent, those are slightly interchangeable. Like, I'll give you an example. Don't you know Allah has the attribute of dissimilarity to the creations? You know that. And what does that mean? That means he has the attribute of oneness. Then you might say, well, I thought dissimilarity was an attribute and oneness was an attribute. Yeah, that's true. So are they the same or are they different? It's a different way of looking at something. You look at it from one way, you look at it from another way. When you look at it from one way, you give it one name. You look at it from another way, you give it another name. That's why you might give someone a charity, or you might give them a present, or you might give someone a donation. Which one is which? It depends on how you look at it. So, yes, the unknown. Like, I sell you whatever is in this box. Or, I buy it for 1,000 dinars and dirhams. And likewise, the amount and description of debt needs to be known for a debt transfer. I'll skip that for now unless you have a question. And the bride must be known to the groom. Yes. And if her face is not seen by the witnesses, her name must be known. That's for the witnesses, not the groom. The groom doesn't have to know the bride's face. He just has to know her person. He could marry her without having ever seen her before, but the witnesses need to see her. Or they need to know her name. See her face, need to have seen her face or know her name. However, the work done for a reward can be unknown, just like the worker. Like if you said, whoever finds my cat gets $1,000. Who's going to do that? You don't know. That's valid though. And how is he going to do that? You don't know. Still valid though. How come it's valid? That's a risk that the religion allowed us to take. That type of dealing that's called giving a reward, that's a risky deal, but the religion allows us to take this risk. So then if somebody came with your cat, you have to give them $1,000. And nor what is apparently undeliverable. Apparently undeliverable. Now it's not, and we say apparently, it means that's the obvious case. That's the obvious case. You can't deliver it. Like a runaway horse or hijacked land. So you can't sell that. It's not valid. It's still yours though. Unless it is sold to someone who can retrieve it without a great expense. Without a great expense, that's a condition. You can sell that thing that's apparently undeliverable to someone who can retrieve it without a great expense on his part. And the khula in this case is valid as opposed to a sale, but not for the item. What does that mean? It means now we're talking about something that's undeliverable. So a woman says to her husband, give me a khula for the horse. I'll pay you the horse for khula. And that's a runaway horse. So is the khula valid? It is valid. The khula in this case is valid as opposed to a sale. Had that been a sale, it wouldn't have been valid. I sell you that horse, but it's a runaway horse. So if he says, I accept, that's valid, but not for that item though. So the khula is valid. Now something has to get paid though. Not that item, but something has to get paid for this khula. What? I don't know at the moment, actually. I have to get that detail to fill that gap in there. Is it, for example, mahrul mithal? What the dowry of a woman like that takes? We'll ask, inshallah. Also, insurance, number 7. Can't be sold. It's too risky. And it's riba. Sheikh says insurance is riba. itself. Sheikh equates insurance to a loan seeking a benefit. How's that? Because a loan, a, a, a valid, lawful loan religiously, there's no benefit in you getting it, giving it. There's no benefit in you giving it because you're only going to get back your same money anyway. There's no profit for you when I say benefit. There's no profit for you in a loan religiously. So you get the benefit of reward of helping someone, but I'm not talking about that. So monetarily, religiously, there's no benefit in a loan. You give the money to get it back, and that's it. But when you give that money to get an extra benefit back, but you're not even buying something though in particular, then this is the riba. That's the riba. Like what? So basic example is you give someone a loan so that he gives you back the loan and something else too. Or for some reason, for some benefit, for some benefit. The hadith says, "Kullu qardin jarra manfa'atan fahuwa riba." Every loan that draws a benefit is riba. So that means all you can do is get your money back. So when you pay the insurance guy, are you just giving him your money so he can give it back to you? No. You're giving him that money so that he'll do something for you, which is the insurance that you know. Sheikh says that's riba. And also what? When the people put all the money into a bank account and then randomly give out payouts like every month, for example, to the contributors. Sheikh says that's riba because every person only contributed so that he can get the benefit, and it's not a sale. They do call insurance a sale, but you're not really buying anything. You have to be careful about the way those people word things, those non-Muslims. Number 8, for an advance payment sale, it cannot be rare, like a big pearl or a slave woman with her child. That's not valid. Too risky. When you say to him, he's a selim dealer. You say to him, yeah, I want to order pearl as big as a baseball. It's invalid. It's too rare. Or I want to order a slave woman with her child. Not valid. Number 9, selling a debt for a debt. Selling a debt for a debt. This has different scenarios. We already talked about one now. In the selim deal, you're going to have to pay up front because he's going to owe you by having to deliver to you. There is a case similar to this, which is the case of hiring an agency, hiring a company. Now, these are my words I'm saying in English. What they say in Arabic is ijaratu dhimma. The dhimma is an account. So the roughest translation I can come up with for ijaratu dhimma is hiring your tab. It's basically like I'm paying you now, and I'm putting money on the tab now. So what does that mean? It means you owe me now. So what is that? How's that hiring an agency? That's exactly as hiring an agency as opposed to what? Or a company, as opposed to hiring a person in particular or a thing in particular. That's different. When you hire someone in particular or a thing in particular, hiring and renting are the same, by the way. Don't ever forget that. Hiring and renting 100% the same. When you hire or rent a particular thing, then you don't have to pay upfront, like a sale. You don't have to pay upfront. So, for example, you might say to me, I hire you to work for me for 8 hours for such and such amount. And I'll say, I accept. All right. So I'm hired now, even if you didn't pay me now. And even if I didn't work now, it's valid. So then I'm going to work according to our agreement. You're going to pay me according to our agreement, or at least according to the rules of the religion. But it's different when you're hiring, when you're putting money on someone's tab. That means you're hiring his agency, hiring his company. What that means is you're not hiring him to do the work personally. You're hiring him to get the work done. So when you hire him to get the work done, this is similar to a Selim sale. Hiring him to get the work done means you're not hiring any person in particular to do the work. So you're hiring this guy and you're saying to him, you see this work here, this plumbing, this electric, this flooring, this roofing, yeah, all that, get it done. So doesn't mean you, unless that's what you hire him for. If you say, I hire you to get all this done, then that's so be it. But if you're saying, get it done, that means you get the crew. That's your business. Your crew is your business. Your vehicles is your business. Here's my price. You can get this work done for me for this price? Yes? Now it's your job to get this thing done. I paid you. I hired your agency. Now, yeah, there is an issue. Where do the materials come from, though? So if you're providing the materials, he's going to work with the materials you gave him. If he provides the materials, then he can sell them to you. That's a different contract, though. Selling the material to you so that he can work with it, that's a different contract. So that's how it's going to matter when he says to you, I ran out of paint or whatever. So are you going to provide the paint for him to keep working? Or he's going to provide the paint and sell it to you so he can keep working? If he doesn't sell it to you, that means he's painting it with his own paint. That's his paint. So what we're basically saying here, parts and labor, that's two different deals. So now you have here two cases of selling a debt for a debt. One is advance payment sale, because you need to pay for your delivery. Two is hiring an agency, which we might be able to say it in another way too. Yani, I think in common words, where I'm from at least, you would say hiring an independent contractor. Hiring an independent contractor.